Yeah, I got it.
I don't hear anyone.
Some people call me Shiny, some people call me Rox. And those who try to diss, I just knocks them out the box. Cause I'm Shante and y'all know the routine. And here we go again. So all hail the queen. I left before a while, but it was worth the wait. Because it gave me just enough time to create a funky rhythm that's guaranteed to move the world. Had the party people screaming out now. Just like Diana Ross, I'm the boss. And those who disapprove, you can go for yours. But to think a girl like me hot is easy to take. Treat me like Nell Carter. Give me a break. Cause I'm the super female that's called Shante. And like Hurricane Annie, I'll blow you away. Whenever I'm in a battle, yo, I don't play. So you best go about your way and have a nice day.
Good morning. Today is Wednesday, April 21st, and this is the Urban Talk Radio 103.5 FM WNHH, where you will hear conversation, information, education, inspiration, and motivation from the American urban perspective. I am your host, Kingsley Ossei, Director of Connecticut Against Violence, and my co-host, Shafiq. I'm not going to mention your last name. Joining us today in our home studios will be our special guest, whom I'll be giving an introduction to. Today on Urban Talk Radio, you can join the conversation on Facebook at Bull Minds and Twitter at Bull Minds. You can also stream this show on your smartphone or computer by logging on to newhavenindependent.org. And if you do miss the show, there will be a SoundCloud for you to listen to. Also join me on my Facebook page, Kingsley Ossei. And today's topic, we will be discussing police brutality. We will discuss hip hop and what hip hop's roles are in some of the many issues that we play, and also mental health, which is something that everybody's dealing with. And unfortunately, we lost an icon, DMX, a couple of weeks ago. So we will talk about DMX, who was very close to our special guest to some extent. Unfortunately, we also lost BR, Black Rob. So hip hop is losing them, and I've been trying to give them their flowers while they are still alive. And so today's special guest is a living legend. We have to give them their flowers. Living legend, Roxanne Shante of the Juice Crew, and she also had a show on LL Cool J's Rock the Bells. And I will let Roxanne Shante introduce herself better than I can. A lot of times I know a lot about these artists. A lot of them are my friends, so I'm able to go through having a conversation instead of an interview. But hopefully I will be establishing friendship with Roxanne Shante, whom I had opportunity to meet at one point and gave her a Connecticut Against Violence shirt to take a picture of to help get our message out about violence prevention, which she did. And she gave me her phone number, and I did try to get her to join us on the hip hop expression of Black history so we could give her her flowers, and but it did not happen. And through my friendship with Juice Crew founder, Fly Tie, who is also here with us, he's been able to connect me with all these members of the Juice Crew. So, is Fly Tie on yet? Fly Tie is not on yet. Ladies and gentlemen, Roxanne Shante. Hello, sis.
How are you?
Fine, thank you very much. Shafiq, what's going on, brother?
Man, it's Ramadan. It's a struggle. It's a struggle right now. Ramadan. And you can't say my name for like 3 years.
I'm not going to say your last name.
He said Roxanne Shante, good morning, but he can't say Shafiq Abdussabur.
Shafiq Abdussabur. Did I say it right? I tried.
Go ahead, Roxanne.
I tried.
Tell us something.
How are you? What's been going on, Roxanne?
I've been great. I've been definitely holding up throughout this whole pandemic situation. I must say that I happen to be one of those who was blessed enough to continue employment and being able to entertain throughout the pandemic, because I am on Sirius XM daily from 4 to 7 p.m. with another one of my Juice Crew brothers, Cutmaster Cool V. So we're doing very well. As far as the show goes, we have well over 7 million listeners per day. So we do pretty good. It's definitely a blessing. To Shafiq, Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So the thing about it is that I've been blessed enough to continue this journey. I started making records, I want to say about 35 years ago, if not more. And I've still been able to make a living from that, amongst other things. I do voiceovers. I've done quite a few successful investments. I have a nonprofit organization called Mind Over Matter that we do here in Newark, New Jersey. I live in Newark, New Jersey, and I'm here as part of the building. I started something called regentrification. And regentrification means you go out, you make money, you come back into the hood, and you don't complain about gentrification. Instead, you do regentrification. You move back into the hood,
Talk about it.
and you make
Say
yourself.
it again. Say it one more time for us.
Yeah,
Say it one more time for us.
I came up with the term regentrification, and it has actually started a movement. And you'll find a lot of people, throughout the United States have now picked up with the Roxanne and Shante's regentrification. And that means you go out, you make money, you move back into the hood instead of complaining about everybody always buying up everything, And what I find is that where I'm located is considered a red zone. And a red zone means it's a high and hot crime area. But what we do is my presence, and I actually feel this way, and only Allah makes this possible, is the fact that my presence has actually calmed the situation down. Children get a chance to see that someone who makes a certain amount of money, or someone who is on television or has movies, lives right around the corner. Everything is not so far out of reach for them. So now they take a little more pride in it. And so it's just a blessing. And, that's what Roxanne Shante does every day, is try to make, I try to become that woman that I wish I may have had when I was growing up. I try to be that mentor that I wanted to have. So that's me.
And we have to thank social media, because social media have allowed us into your life. We not just social media, but we also have to thank the pandemic, because the pandemic have allowed us into your life.
Yes, absolutely. But Roxanne Shante has always been an open book. So even before the pandemic, I've always had a very personable Instagram page. I've always had a very personable Facebook page. I don't get on there and make it seem like every day is a great day, or I'm riding around in yachts or this or that. I go from everywhere, from when I'm in ShopRite and something doesn't go right. So it's allowed people to be able to truly identify and appreciate me being, who I am.
Shafiq, go ahead.
Oh, I love
this. Listen, I'm just enjoying.
So, Roxanne, now I want to go back into the beginning of your career.
Okay.
I watched Time is Illmatic, and the world knows who my favorite artists are. You cannot argue with me about Nas. Bottom line, case closed.
Oh my goodness, here we go. All right, I'm not gonna say nothing again.
And I always get back to, I always talk about the Nas album, Distant Relative, where he went to Ghana and recorded that album with Damian Marley. It's not a radio album. You could get an education through just listening to the album, even if you don't want to read. So this is some of the things that I separate Nas from many different artists. And it just happened to be that their artist's career was inspired by you. I mean, I watched Nas's Illmatic, and I recall him saying that Nas left school because his father said school was failing him, so he should follow his dream if he doesn't want to go to school. But then we also found out that you was the one that inspired this guy to be an artist, because you seen something in him. Let's talk about it. And you didn't even brag about it. You didn't even talk about it. We happen to hear that from the Time is Illmatic.
Well, the thing about it is that, and this is what you need to understand, is that, see, some people do hard work, some people do hard work. And I do anything that I do from the heart. And because of that, anything that I've done for anyone, I'm not a person who will go out there and block my blessings by saying, look what I did for this one, look what I did for that one. See, that's where people, when people do that, they are actually doing it for the attention, or they're doing it to see if they're able to put themselves in a better position, or even to make that other person that they may have done something for feel guilty or feel like they owe them something. And so I don't mention any of the things that I do for anyone. I allow them to mention it first. And if they choose to mention it first and they want to tell, then it allows me to come behind them and only be able to, put the stamp on it and say, yes, I did do those things. But I'm never the one that says, okay, well, look, I did this for this one. I made this, I made that one, I made this, I made that, because I've always understood that if you do that, then you really didn't mean it. And when I met Nas, I really meant it. I meant like, listen, I see something great in, don't let these streets eat you up. I'm not a person who can forecast the future, but you are going to change the hip hop world. And there's no way that you need to be out here. So if I catch you doing that, I'm going to fight you, because the thing about it is that, and I didn't use the word fight, I used the word, I'm going to fuck you up, but that's how we talked then. And I want people to understand this. When someone says that to you, they say that to you because they care about the direction that you're going in. When someone says that to you, that is just a way that we have been taught, whether it was good or bad, but it's the way that we've been taught in order to take the next generation and make them structured. Like you discipline, and to show discipline is to show love. And so, I threatened some discipline, and he understood where I was coming from with it. And I never, ever mentioned it. And then he put it inside of Illmatic. And I said, you were going to tell, he said, listen, if it wasn't for you, then I wouldn't be who I am. And, I felt honored. And we went all the way to Dubai one time. And while we were in Dubai, in the middle of his show, he stopped the show and he called me out on stage, and he just like literally bowed, and it just sent chills through my body, because of the fact that here we are coming from Queensbridge Public Housing, which is the largest housing project in the world. And now here we are literally at the top of the world, which is in Dubai, and we were there, and, you look at it like, wow, everything comes full circle, but look at how beautiful this circle is. So yeah, so I've never been a person to brag or say I started this or did this. I'm just where Allah places me.
So with all these great artists from Queensbridge, which is especially the ones from the 90s generation, I happen to be I've worked with a few of them, and I'm also very close with most of them, Cormega, the whole Mob Deep crew, Trage. I'm very close with a lot of these guys. With all these talents out of Queensbridge, what is it that you've seen different in Nas than everybody else?
Well, I think what it was the fact that the support that he had, as far as his artistry and intellectual support, because his parents and his household was a little different than your average household, because you rarely get somebody's father who says, listen, school's not doing what it's supposed to do for you, so don't go, and I'm like, that's different, so that was like almost a technique of homeschooling before we even heard of homeschooling. Right. Because usually everybody's parents is rushing them to get up and get out the house, rushing them to go to school every day, and for him to say that, and Nas constantly walked around with a book, and you didn't really see that too often. So there were a few things that were different. And when you see that, you nurture that and you protect that, you understand that.
Okay, so now let's get back to your movie, Roxanne.
Yes.
There is so many times where these movies and documentary come and it does not match the real story of the person. I recall Lil' Kim just being hell-bent when theirs came out. You happen to be very pleased. I mean, this, we seen this Roxanne and our mouth is like, oh my God, she went through that. She was this, she was that. And then we come to today and we're like, what a very powerful woman. She went through all this and she still stands with her 2 feet, knuckled up, ready to just box every man that steps her way. Let's talk about that, Roxanne.
Well, the movie Roxanne, I served as executive producer. I was there on set every day.
Okay.
And I was there every step of the way to make sure that the story stayed organic, to make sure that it was told properly. I was included in everything from the casting to literally the check writing, to take care of this and make sure this is done and make sure that one's done. And, and I think the reason why Roxanne was so successful and it's such a good movie is because, one, we didn't embellish, like we toned it down actually, because the Roxanne and Shante story is not an easy one to tell,
Yes.
nor would it be an easy one to watch.
Right.
If you had to sit there and watch it every, to see everything I went through every step of the way. And we wanted to make sure that it was available to everyone. We wanted it to be a household movie. Now, we didn't know that it was going to be viewed 60 something million times. Like, we didn't know to that magnitude, but we knew that it was going to change one little girl's life. And I wanted to tell my story, and I told it. And I remember going to my family and discussing it with them, like, listen, this is not just my story, because I'm just one member of this family.
Right.
So I need to know, how would you feel if I told it? Because it does open up, a lot of things that maybe my sisters might have buried, or maybe there might have been some things that, my mom may not have wanted to address. So I actually sat down with them and like, listen, this is what I want to do. Every step of the way, I want y'all to know this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm going to tell. And, my mom's whole thing about it was like, listen, well, you can't argue with the truth, so go ahead and tell it, and that was the reason why, people were saying, oh my God, look at the characters, look how they're portrayed. But if you noticed, you never heard that one person say, oh, well, I'm going to come out, I'm going to sue, or, that was defamation of character. You didn't hear any of that, because they knew that it was truthful, and they knew that I told it as nicely as I could, because I could have told it, I could have dug in deeper, but just chose not to, because again, everybody has their own legacy. And when it comes to like my Juice Crew brothers and everything else, their children, those are my nieces and my nephews, even with Ty being and that's Tyrone Williams being my father figure. I have two little sisters and a brother from Ty, so when I look at their children, those are my brothers and sisters. So everything needs to be told in order for me to understand and take into account everybody's feelings and how everybody is portrayed, still keeping it truthful, but also letting it be known like, okay, look, we're family. So I'm just one member of the family telling the story. And it was very important to me that I stayed right there to make sure that no one was made extra villain, or no one was, because I didn't need any extra villains, because I already had villains in my life. And I didn't need any extra stories, because I already went through some things. And I didn't need any extra drama, because it was already there. If anything, we toned it down, and I was very proud of the project. When we went to Sundance Film Festival, we weren't even finished editing, and they wanted the movie in Sundance. We weren't even finished editing. Literally the night before the film was shown and premiered at Sundance, that was my first time seeing it also, because they were still finishing it. But everybody, as soon as they heard bits and pieces of it, as soon as they saw bits and pieces of it, they were like, oh my God, I got to see the whole thing. And I think it is one of the only movies that actually had 3 showings, but was scheduled for only 1. Wow. But people were staying outside in a blizzard. And I think that was the first time I cried regarding the movie, is when I looked outside of my limousine, and I looked outside and I was like, so where are all of these people going? And they was like, this line here is for your movie. And I just cried, because I just, most people like, oh, Roxanne Shante, she's old school rapper. She just, she's making a movie, or it's just some little documentary, like they didn't even expect to see people like Nia Long, Mahershala Ali, so many other great actors. They were like, well, how did she get them? And how did she get that? Everybody that was in the movie wanted to be in the movie. And that's why it worked out so well.
That is awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the living legendary Roxanne Shante of the Juice Crew. We will bounce back to the Juice Crew days as soon as Fly Tie can be able to log on. Now, you happen to wear your emotions on, sometimes we think Roxanne is this hard and this hard, and she may not have emotions. But we seen you cry. We seen you not rant, but do a tribute when DMX passed, and it shocked the world. I mean, you had some type of relations to DMX, something related, both of you together. And it says something that we go through every single day. If every man can let it be known what they are going through, the world will change. But especially for men, we tend to try and be hard, that we got to keep it inside of us. We got to keep it inside of us, because Scarface said it best. I never seen a man cry till I seen a man die.
Mm-hmm.
seem not to want to cry. Let's talk about your relations with DMX and how it started. What made you guys relate, and then let's get into mental health.
Well, my relationship with Earl, with DMX, we were very good. We were very, I don't want to say like we were everyday close, but in hip hop world, your brothers are your brothers, so you don't get to see them every day. So when you do see them, you're happy to see them, and you hug and you exchange. You talk about the kids, you talk about family. So what people don't understand is that hip hop is not just a genre of music; it's a culture.
Culture.
So because it's a culture, we see each other, we embrace each other, we talk. How's the family catch up? And I remember my first time meeting DMX, and we automatically just started talking, and you would think that we were talking about all of the good things and how we're flying on planes and how we're doing this, but we started talking about the things that we survived. And one of the things was going through the foster care and the group home system and going into youth facilities. And he had already told me, he was like, I used to hear about you because I was in a place called Hegeman, and they called me a Hega monster because of the fact that, I would fight. Like, I was very aggressive, and you had to be. And I think the reason why I went, and I don't want to say think, I know the reason why I went online and did that live is because all you were hearing were drug this and they did this and he had everything and he did this and he did that. And I was like, hold on. You don't know what we've been through. You don't know what we've survived. You don't know how we've survived it. There's so many happy adults, and on the inside, they just sad children, but they looking like happy adults. Sometimes you gotta look at it and wonder why, people don't have great marriages or successful marriages, or maybe even long careers, or they don't choose to do other things in their life. Is because there are certain things about us that will never be fixed because we can no longer reach them because we've pushed them so far back. But what happens is when you bump into someone who has went through what you've went through, it's almost like a kindred spirit. Y'all kind of bump into each other and it automatically brings it right back up. And you're just happy and relieved in order to talk to someone who understands it. Because I can talk to you all day about foster care and what it feels like when you first get off, but you will never be able to understand it. You will never be able to relate to it unless you've been through it. Like, that's like trying to talk to someone who's been incarcerated and say, yeah, well, I know what it is to be locked up in my room, but you can come out of your room. You don't know what it's like to be locked up and can't come out even if you needed to.
Right.
Like, even if there's a fire in here, I can't get out unless they want to save me. And being a check child and going through that in the foster care system is very difficult, because when you go from that and then you go into, let's just say you go into the hip hop world, you literally go in there and you're still young. You just went from one facet of being a check child to being another facet of being a check child, because it still goes all about the money. It's still all about, what the benefits are, what they can get and what they're able to do. So that's how, that's what our relationship was. And I went on, I just needed people to know that. I needed people to see it from a different angle. I didn't want people to I needed you to see why every time he got a chance to have an audience in front of him, he wanted to, he wanted to preach. He wanted to speak the word of God. He wanted to let people know, like, listen, you have to do this. You need to have this in your life. And people didn't want to see that. So I think, and I hope that my video was able to at least touch some people. I mean, I've received thousands, and literally, no exaggeration, I've received thousands of emails from people who have survived the foster care system, people who are young children who are still in the foster care system. What you don't understand is that when you opt out, when you age out of the foster care system, you starting all over again as a newborn. You start all over again as a newborn. You're leaving out of the foster care system. You're 18, between 18 and 21, because this is what is happening now. Foster care, some foster care parents, because you have some good ones, but some foster care parents are telling kids that once they turn 18, they have to leave, but they continue to get money for those children till they're 21.
Yeah.
So they continue to get money for those kids till they're 20. They start putting the pressure on them like, yeah, so listen, you're 18 now. So what you gonna do? You're gonna be grown, you can't stay here. What are you gonna do? And then now, unfortunately, we have so many of our children put on SSI because they're making them think like in order to have a check, you have to dumb down in order to have a check. So now we have kids who want to learn but are scared to learn, who want to do well in school but are scared to do well in school because their check may get cut off. So it's a horrible way to, live. And so when you come out of the foster care system and you're 18 years old and you got your feet on the ground, you're a newborn. You have no family ties, no one to connect to. They don't want to give you resources. So there is so much that everyone has to deal with that people don't know. So when you go into this thing called hip hop and you start off early and you're able to make money, then you find yourself literally being a slave to that because you don't want to be without being able to make money. You want to be able to get a check. What is the statistics are that young girls in foster care system become mothers. I want to say, is it 54% of them, or it might be 53% of them become mothers before they're 15. That's a lot. Are sexually abused before they're 7. So that's a lot to deal with, so.
That's right.
Let me do a station identification. This is the Urban Talk Radio 103.5 FM WNHH. I am your host, Kingsley Ossei, and co-host Shafiq. And if you are just joining us today on Urban Talk Radio, you can join the conversation on Facebook at Bold Minds and Twitter at Bold Minds. You can also join me on my Facebook page, Kingsley Ossei. And in our home studios, our special guests, we have the legendary Roxanne Shante formerly of the Juice Crew, and also the host of the Rock the Bells show on Sirius Radio, and also the movie Roxanne, if you haven't seen it. We also have some special guests. I decided to throw in a few surprise because we are indirectly giving Roxanne Shante her flowers until we get to see her again for our next hip-hop expression of Black history. Big shout out to Rakim, whom we hosted last year for it. Joining us today, we have Ernie Pendicoli, who said Roxanne Shante was the only female that cooked for him. Ernie is the legendary hip hop photographer. If you don't know Ernie, you need to know Ernie. Yesterday on Versus, I heard Method Man give Ernie a shout out. I was in there, Ernie. I seen you in there. We also have a family member, OJ Wedlow, who was the one that got me into the music industry, coming in as a DJ, working with Loud Records and many artists, 50 Cent and Snoop and Ice Cube, and taking me out on tour. And I'm forever going to give OJ his flowers. And OJ was also, if I'm not mistaken, he was introduced into the industry through his uncle, Fly Tie, who said he's locked out of Zoom for making too many attempts. So we are having a little family affair in here. So if you are listening to us on the radio, these are who we have in the studios right now. And if you are watching us, I'm presenting to you Ernie Pendicoli and OJ Wello, who decided to come in as a surprise to see Roxanne. Roxanne, these are your surprises today.
I see.
Brother Ernie, what's good, man?
We can't hear you, OJ, because you muted.
OJ on mute.
One of my most famous pictures is of OJ and his daughter. And as far as Roxanne goes, I was doing a video of her in her home, and she not only made breakfast for me, but each ingredient that she put into that food, she explained to me, what has pork, what is clean, what is unclean. And I'm standing there in the kitchen and I'm saying, they have this mistaken identity of Roxanne as just, hip hop. And she's breaking it down to me scientifically, and it lasted with me. There's only one other person in hip hop that cooked for me, and that was Hakeem Green, another brother from Newark.
He's talking about Hakeem Green of Channel Live. I also, I spoke to Hakeem Green a couple of days ago. We're going to get Hakeem Green on as well. And Ernie, before you finish that, before you finish that, we have another special, on mute, please. April, on mute. We have another special guest who came through, Ernie. Ernie told me the story about taking that picture with OG and his daughter. He's going to talk about that later on. Ernie, when I spoke to Ernie yesterday, he said there's another special guest who would like to join in to say hi to Roxanne Shante, and that's April Walker of Walker Wear. If you don't know, Walker Wear was Tupac's #1 gear that he was wearing, and I will let April tell us about how that came along, or maybe I'm going to bring her on to do her own show, because she also have a TV show on a show on Netflix called Remix. Is that correct, April?
The Remix, Hip Hop times Fashion. Yeah, yes,
Right.
I'm one of the features in that.
Right. So we're going to bring you up by yourself so that we can feature you. However, Roxanne, would you want to say hi to April?
Yes, absolutely. How are you, sweetie?
How are you, Queen? I just really wanted to give you flowers while you are here, because I appreciate you. I appreciate your transparency. I appreciate your talents. I appreciate all that you've given to this culture. I appreciate all that you continue to give to the culture. You continue to empower women and just everyone in hip hop. And that means so much to me. Like, and honestly, after DMX passed, I saw that Instagram you put up, and I actually was with Rosie Perez. We watched it together and she was in tears. She's also from the foster care system. So I just wanted to say, like, I would love to connect. You are on my bucket list to style. I've styled many icons, but never you. And I just would love to make that checklist happen.
Absolutely. But we will definitely make that happen. And thank you so much for that. No, we will definitely make that happen. You know, with a lot, like I've had thousands of people reach out to me regarding it, because it is a difficult situation. And I started to feel bad, because I know that I opened up a lot of things that people had locked up in them. And maybe there was stories or things that they may have forgotten, in ways that they were able to survive this world, and they had put it behind them. And I guess I made a lot of those things come to the surface. But I tell everybody, like, listen, like, we survived it, and we know so many that didn't. When people tell me, like, oh, with hip hop, you don't know how people was out here in the streets. You don't know how it was out here in the streets. I said, listen, literally, I've been touching these streets since I was 8 years old. I've been running around and been on my own and out in these streets since I was 12. You know, when I came to Cold Chillin', before there was even a Cold Chillin', when I came to Pop Art, I was a ward of the state. And when they were taking me around traveling, they literally, I have a few birthdays because they were so afraid. Nobody knew what information to get or where to get it from or anything like that. And even though I have a wonderful relationship with my mother now, I understood that even adults need help when certain things go wrong in their lives. And sometimes that falls on children, and we become adults before we really want to, before we really can. When people ask me, well, you know, if you had to say, what do you think it is? I would say that I definitely suffer from arrested development. Why? Because I stopped being able to develop properly when I was 10. So that's gonna make me make some decisions and do some things and get a little angrier than most people could imagine, because I've been having to do this my entire life. That's why it's so easy to say, okay, well, I don't want to do this. When I think about my career and how it could have been, I don't want to say that I would ever change anything, because it is phenomenal to be good now. It is a blessing to be good now.
Yeah.
To be at this age and not have to look, search, and be okay now. But had it been different for me growing up, I'd have been in the studio. I wouldn't have saw it as a waste of time, because I'm so busy thinking, like, look, I got things to do. You know, I've been a mom longer than I've been anything else. And doing that, it always put me in a position of where I got to do this. I got to do. Everything was so hurried. Everything was so rushed. Everything is so now. You got to, because you're so used to the temporary. Nothing is permanent. So you're like, okay, well, if they're going to be nice, they're only going to be nice for a little while. So I'm not going to be nice at all. And
I
then
remember I remember shooting your baby in your house, having pictures of you and Chucky.
Mhm.
Let me add something real quick. I'm not going to
Absolutely.
take up your time. You talk about your movie and your talks opening up wounds. The truth, and I went through a terrible time, we all did. The truth is that until you confront those memories, until you confront those demons, until you confront, you can never be fully healed and you can never fully grow as a human being. So what you did was not a negative thing. If you open this up and let that poison out, you can grow and you can grow strong. So trust me, what you did was healing.
Well, thank you, because I needed to hear that.
100%.
Yeah, I definitely need to hear that, because so many people have went through so much, and everybody puts on such a great front. Like my show is called Have a Nice Day, because I like to make sure that everybody has a nice day.
Right.
Because
and, this is the best time
of so many sad things going on everywhere else. You need to know that there's one place you can go where, oh yeah, Shante is crazy. She's up there talking about, I talk about everything from constipation to graduation. Like
Shante, how old is your baby now? Because I still got pictures of him. Huh?
Yeah, he's like a big cock diesel dude. He ain't no baby.
You're kidding. I got pictures of him where he was like 5 or 4.
Yeah, and now he's 34.
And
Wow.
Ernie, you got that baby picture of OJ Wello, who is how old is OJ? How's your daughter?
Olivia's 26 now. She's
look at that.
Him.
Brother, you remember that picture I took of the two of you?
Yes,
that's one of my. I've been photographing for over 45 years. That's one of my favorite pictures ever.
Yeah, that was that Rocksteady anniversary. Yeah, the sun was in the perfect position. That was a nice picture, Ernie.
And Roxanne, you said, this is the best time of your career. And let's not forget that it looked like you turned a moral responsibility into a career.
Yes, absolutely. I think battle rapping was definitely for me. I don't know. I mean, you have so many great battle rappers, but baby, it was made for me. Like when you think some things, it was made for me.
It was made for Oh, I could tell you, I used to see Shante go on the stage and she would start going off to the top of the head and I'd be like so worried, like, oh my God. And then I'm like, yo.
Oh God.
He would talk about the whole crowd, dog. It was, oh my God. It was impossible to beat her.
I have to talk about this because our clock is running down. There is a picture that you just put out there with Shan in the room and you're sitting next to Mike Tyson.
Yes.
And you said you went into a battle zone in that picture. Can you talk about that picture?
Yes, but before I do that, let me just say this to
Harry, can you show that picture? I think you have it. It's Roxanne Shante sitting next to Mike Tyson. Go ahead, Roxanne.
Let me tell you. I remember when I met OJ, and I didn't just meet OJ, I met OJ's entire family. Now, any child that goes through foster care system, we latch on to families. Right. We do. Like, even as entertainers, we don't like to stay at hotels because we've done enough staying in rooms by ourselves. So we like to go to people's houses and everything else. And out of all of the families that I have ever been around, I would have been a wedlaw. That's where I was supposed to be. When his mother came out the kitchen, cussing,
his mom burns, right?
I said, yeah, that's where I'm supposed to be.
His mom burns.
Yes.
His mom burns. I've been in his mom's house in Houston, and she burns.
Yes. Did you hear me when she came out the kitchen cussing with a pan full of macaroni and cheese, telling everybody to sit their ass down and eat? I said, yeah, this would have been it.
Oh God.
This would have been quiet. Look, quiet father. Mother is in charge of everything. This comes in the back door because she just finished fighting. Her hair was messed up. The kids was I said, yeah, this was my house. This would have been it. And so we do. And I just want to tell you, OJ, thank you so much for sharing your family with me.
I say no doubt, you know it. All day, love you, girl, forever.
I want to touch on this before we
okay, the picture. Okay, so here's the picture. You know, I'm a young girl, maybe about 14, maybe 14, 15 in that picture. And I went to go to a battle, and I went there earlier that day. And the guy was like, well, listen, you the little girl with the braces that keep coming around here winning all the money, because I was notorious by this time in New York City. Anywhere I went, I was winning the battle. So now they started asking for me to say cheese when I get to the door, because if it's the little girl with the braces, don't let her in. Because she gonna come in and she gonna get this money. So he said, let me see. So of course, you know, yeah, it's me. I'm here, I'm ready. And he was like, well, look, if you win, I may or may not pay you. Now, see, this is things that foster kids go through. This was things that being in a group home you go through. These are things that you have dealt with your entire life, where people are not fair to you. People don't do you right. People don't do what they say. So I said, yeah. He said, and I don't care who you bring with you.
That's fired.
So I went and got the group home gang. Because remember, Mike done went through the system. So he done been through the youth facilities and everybody. Shan done been through the facilities. So I went and got the whole group home gang. I said, okay. I showed back up with Mike Tyson and a whole juice crew. And he was like, I didn't say I wasn't going to pay you. I said, I may or may not. I said, well,
That's priceless.
That's a great story. Now, Roxanne, I want to talk about police brutality. Brother Shafiq is a retired police officer. Now, in your lifetime, I'm not sure if you ever thought we would have a Black female VP. Now here we are. We went through the Rodney King era, and yesterday everybody's like, okay, you know, the U.S. justice system is on trial. Even with all the evidence in our face and all the common sense, and the defense attorney just throwing spaghetti, everything on the wall to see what stick, there is no common sense that you cannot apply to overturn this. And the verdict came where the justice system finally threw one of its own white supremacists under the bus. It looks like change is coming. What do you think about that?
Well, when I was watching the trial, I had already knew what was expected to happen. But then again, we always expect certain things and we always get something different sometimes. But when he started talking about chocolate chip cookies, which made me go and bake some, I knew that the defense was done, because I said, okay, he can't grab onto anything because it was right there in your face.
Right.
Now, as far as police brutality, I come from the largest housing project in the world.
I was about to say that. That's what my question was.
I've seen it my entire life.
Right.
Now, what I've noticed is that the change came for us when they took the precincts out of the projects. See, we used to know our police officer. The police officer used to be in the precinct. The precinct was on the hill in the middle of the projects. Everybody knew him. They had keys to everybody's house. Now I'm taking you all the way back into the 70s.
Community policing.
So it was a fact of, you know, the door was always open. You could always go in there. You could always ask them questions. You know, they were always involved with the community, and then they closed it down, shut it down, put the precincts in the middle of the projects, but not in the projects anymore. So instead, they were now located on regular streets. And that's when we noticed that it got different, that they started coming in and they started, because they didn't know your mother. So they didn't care anything about hurting you because they didn't know who your mother was. You know, they didn't know that, oh yeah, well, that's a walker. And if you do that to a walker, there's 26 of them. So he's not leaving. Like, you can't put him in a cop car because he's a walker. They just start all around. So now everybody is coming out. And I think what we're experiencing now is people being tired of minding their business. I think now people are starting to care more, because now It's not what someone told you, because when people come and tell you something, that's one thing. But when people come and show you something, it's totally different. All I kept thinking to myself was, how are we going to handle all of these little children who had to hear this man die? They didn't hear this man being arrested. They had to hear this man's last words. And they had to hear it over and over and over and over again. We were going to have to make some type of change in order for the children to just be able to deal with that. Now, again, a lot of this goes back to, you know, my upbringing and what I've been through and what I've seen. So when you witness death early, unfortunately, you don't really put too much of a value on life, because you see that right after this person was gone, the world went on. Right after they choked this little child out while we were here inside of this facility, they turned the cartoons on, and everybody just went to regular watching cartoons, like as if they wasn't dead. They just packed up all their stuff, put it in a bag, and that was it. They was gone, and then another child just came in. And it seemed like that is what was happening to the world. And so now when you see the Black Lives Matter, when you see, and the reason why we say Black Lives Matter always first out of our mouth, not just because we're Black and our lives matter, but because that is the one that you hear the most often. That's the one that you associate with this whole entire struggle and everything. You want to say that. But when you see these organizations, because there were organizations before this, because if you want to say Black Lives Matter, then you had Black Panthers.
Yeah.
You know, that wanted to make sure that things were good in the community, but instead they just tried to make it seem like, no, those were just Black people with guns that wanted that, but that wasn't it. We had breakfast programs, schools, they were keeping people in their homes, they were making sure people weren't evicted, they were purchasing properties, doing all of these different things. So now to see that there is a change coming makes me feel good, because for a while I didn't know where this world was going. And when you said that maybe I might have thought that I would never see a Black female VP, since I was little, I knew there was going to be a Black woman everything.
I said, did you ever thought? I didn't say you never thought. It was a question.
Oh no, I did. I knew I would. I knew I would, because I knew how I felt inside of me, and I knew what I would have been able to accomplish. And I knew there was some little girl who was being nurtured, who was going to school, who was on the right path, and this was going to happen. I could tell. I just knew it.
Shante, I'm 74 years old now, and I've seen the entire arc. I remember growing up in Brooklyn and getting my behind whipped by the police just for hanging out with just a whole bunch of stuff. And I ain't telling you nothing you don't know, but last night they killed a 16-year-old Black girl, and one of the pigs said something to the effect of Blue Lives Matter. And I watched the video this morning. So even last night, I mean, I was so excited. Zulu Jeff and all the Zulus called me and told me about the trial. I turned on the TV and I was happy, but the happiness was tempered by the fact that one monkey don't stop no show, and that we have to have systemic change. And it's only when the price gets too high for them to afford that things change. And the reason he was found guilty last night, besides his obvious guilt, is the fact that they knew this country would be burned to a cinder. And not because of one, but as the Bible talks about, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. It's not a straw, it's the million straws that were put on his back. So last night, as retaliation, they killed a 16-year-old girl, shot her 4 times in the chest. So I'm not going to be up there grinning and smiling and happy. And no, the work, and even George Floyd's family last night were very, very clear. The work must continue. Our resolve must not weaken, and our activity must be to do this.
Yes.
This is the most powerful thing. And that's tribalism, that's unity, and put all that other stuff aside. And before we celebrate, let's have a decade of no more of our children being killed. not a night or a day. And my heart, and I hope somehow she sees this, goes out to a 17-year-old girl standing there with her phone, not wavering in the face of death, documenting that, because without that, that clown would be free right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, brother Ernie. Shafiq, you wanna chime in before we get ready to wrap up?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Roxanne, Shante, for coming on the show. I'm 54, so I strictly grew up on your music. Knew what every song, knew all the dances. I'm just that guy. Tried to tore up all my father's we didn't have turntables, but I tore up all his record player needles, trying to be DJ Flash, all that stuff. But I appreciate you. I watched the movie actually with my children. At the time, they were teenagers, and it was beyond phenomenal. So I thank you for sharing. You know, I'm not a rapper, but being a former law enforcement officer working in the inner city, I will say that I certainly share your understanding, and the PTSD is real. It's a real situation that we deal with every day. So I embrace you for that. I would say to everybody on the call, you know, I look at the George Floyd decision a little differently. You know, of all the police officers that get arrested every year, roughly 85% of them get acquitted. So less than a handful of officers actually are convicted for what goes on. Roughly about 1,000 people are shot and killed every year by the police, and consistently about 400 of them are Black and Hispanic, and most often unarmed. I think it's like seven out of 10 are shot that are unarmed. So, I know it's a victory for the family. I don't think there's no time to celebrate. We are so far away from where we think we need to be. And if I just take this next 30 seconds, 2012, Mike Brown got shot. We said we don't know what happened before he got shot because we didn't see a video camera. And then we saw Eric Gardner get choked on TV. And then the cops didn't even get arrested. Not only did the cops not even get arrested, but the only cop that got disciplined in Eric Gardner was the Black female sergeant that showed up out of her district to assist. So when we watch these cases, we need to watch them all the way through. And then since 2012, we've been watching Black people die on police cameras. I call it national TV now. We've been watching Black people die on police cameras since 2012. And I'm going to call out the Black politicians. I'm going to call out the Black leaders. I'm going to call out those Black organizations that sit next to these people and allow this stuff to happen and don't speak up. You in Congress, you in these state legislators, you in those offices, get off the golf course, get back in the grassroots with the people, mentor these young people on how they can run for office and they can take the next level. Because if you're too scared, just like somebody was saying the other day, if the police is too scared to do their job, they should get out of policing. If you're too scared to be a leader for Black and brown people, get out of the leadership game. Because it ain't for you. So I'm gonna keep it at that, and I just ask, that God actually, protect this entire country, because just like you said, Brother Ernest, you are exactly right. He went to jail to save the integrity of America's economy.
Shafiq, hold on one second.
He went to jail
Shafiq,
to save America's economy.
Shafiq, hold on one second. Let me do a station ID to sign off on our radio, and the conversation continues on Facebook. And I know Roxanne said she had to leave early around 10:30, and we were blessed for that extra half hour. But before we sign off, this is the Urban Talk Radio 103.5 FM WNHH. I am your host, Kingsley Ossei, DJ Kingsley, and co-host Shafiq. Connecticut. I am the director of Connecticut Against Violence. I must put that out there. And this is the last part of, if you are joining the last part of our show, you can also follow the conversation on Facebook at Bold Minds and Twitter at Bold Minds. Also on my Facebook page, Kingsley Ossei. You can also stream this show and previous shows on your smartphone or computer by logging on to newhavenindependent.org. Thank you for joining us. Remember, Urban Talk Radio airs every Wednesday from 11 a.m. The conversation continues on Facebook. And we do have in our home studios, we have April Walker, who is the designer, founder of Walkware. We have the legendary Roxanne Shante of the Jewish Crew, and also the host of the a host on the Sirius Radio Rock the Bell show. We have Ernie Pendicoli, who is the legendary hip hop photographer like no other. We have Robert O.J. Wedlaw, who is my mentor, who brought me into the industry, coming in as a college radio DJ and a record store owner. Big shout out to our producer, Harry, in the background. And we also have our co-host, Shafiq, retired law enforcement officer. And unfortunately, Fly Tide, owner of Cold Chilling, was not able to log in, but he will be bringing MC Shen to us, and I'll make sure he joins MC Shen. And I hope to also bring April Walker back so that we can get into this remix show on Netflix. Shafiq, go ahead, finish, please.
Yeah, so I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I've seen this. I've written about it. I've been to conferences all around the country, 2 blocks from the White House. We talked about this stuff, back in 2012 and 2006. And, I'm going to keep it real. I mean, my situation is a little different. I don't see things changing. Police is a massive culture, man. You're talking about you're doing something repetitively every single day of your life for 10 years straight, and somebody's going to come in one day with a training program for 2 hours, and because they say don't do this no more, when you're in this situation, you're automatically going to respond. It's just not going to happen. And every threat level that would remind you of your worst nightmare has already been put out there. If you do this, you're going to jail. If you do this, you're going to lose your job. If you do this, you're going to get arrested. If you do this, they're going to protest in front of your house. You're not going to be able to come outside. If you do this, you're going to have to go into hiding, like the officer that shot Mike Brown. All of this stuff has been put out there, and it's still happening. I mean, this kid Dante got shot by this lady. She's screaming taser, 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 and shoots him with a Glock, man. It's a totally, that happens because your mind is processed that this black man is dangerous at all times under all circumstances when he says no to me. So, I mean, it's a little bit more expansive than that, but I'm just drilling it down into a simple thing. So my thing is going to be, if we think this is a victory, just like the brother said, not even 10 years. I'll go with 10 months. Let's go 10 months in America without an unarmed black or Hispanic male getting shot. Let's see if that happens. Guarantee you it will not happen. And I guarantee you that every time, like I've challenged myself, when we think we've seen it all, did we see them all storming the Capitol? Oh my God, on duty. Some of these dudes was in there on duty. Some of these dudes were commanders. Some of these people had like intelligent clearings, for information that is massively sensitive to America. And they stormed the Capitol. So it's like every time we think, hey, they just stormed the Capitol, dude, don't do that. It happens. I'm not saying my hands are up and I give up. I'm just saying we got to think deeper than what we're thinking about right now. That's all.
Yes, Roxanne has to leave. And let's not be mistaken. This is not some type of celebrity show. I run a youth program under Connecticut Against Violence. I also work for the city of Bridgeport. The image that you see there called Agents of Change is my Brothers Keeper Youth Action Team. It's a city of Bridgeport program where we meet with 30 students all through Bridgeport, Connecticut. We define, dissect, and we discuss violence. And today, I get to meet them, and our topic of discussion will be we will talk about, the whole verdict thing yesterday. So we run youth programs. So everything that we discuss out here is relating to our youth, to be clear. That's why we had to talk about mental health. So thank you very much, Roxanne Shante, for joining us. She had to leave, and hopefully we will bring her back again another time. And April Walker, whom I would like to have a whole show with her. April, were you there at Jack the Rapper in '94 in Orlando?
Yes.
I know you was, because everybody was wearing rocker wear over there. Did we just lose April? Yes, I think we lost April too. So I'm left with OJ and Ernie. Oh, what's popping, bro?
Chilling. You know, I'm chilling.
The last time I was at Ernie's house, he was very excited. He said, "Yo, call OJ." I got OJ on the phone, and it was like a reunion over there. I don't know what's up with these two over here. And he got very excited. Like, OJ is the realest. Everybody love
blood in us, bro. That's the Indian blood in us.
That's the Indian what?
The Indian blood.
That native blood right there, Kingsley.
Oh God.
Ernie is the real deal, brother. Ernie is the real deal. Sometimes
I'm just an old man that's seen too much stuff, man. Listen, this brother, you know, shrugged when I talked about we got to see 10 years. He said he'd be happy to see 10 days. The truth, they killed that girl last night. It wasn't even 10 hours. So I agree with Brother Shafiq that this is a struggle that, you know, it's like if you got asthma, you got to deal with it every day of your life. There's no half stepping. And I'm not against anybody celebrating. I'm not against hope. I'm not against, you know, that good feeling you get. But, you know, when nothing is going to bring these children back, nothing. And there's a gap, there's a hole in your soul when these children are taken from us. And that's why they found that pig guilty yesterday, was because they knew that it was dry, you know, dry tinder everywhere, and that all it took was a spark and this whole country would be burned to the ground. So we have to keep that revolutionary zeal, that anger, that father, mother, parent, grandparent awareness in us deeply and reflect that. But this is what we have to do first amongst ourselves. Put all that other BS on hold. Your religion, this, that, this, no. This is called survival. And unless we're focused on survival and transcending the police, transcending the legal system, if every time they kill one of us, they have to suffer and shut down, as the brother so wisely said, shut down the economics, because cash rules everything around you. The Wu-Tang told us that. Mm-hmm. And they were afraid that with the pandemic and everything else and all the layoffs, they're afraid that this country would just be frozen, you know, like an engine, if something wasn't done. So they sacrificed one of their own white supremacists. But the truth is, we have to have, and I've been saying this for so many years, I'm tired of saying it, we have to have a national day, a national strike. One day, shut down everything. Don't use anything. Don't buy anything. Don't sell anything. Just shut it down for one day and make them understand the severe repercussions that comes from killing one of us. Shut it down economically, shut down the schools, the highways, everything. Just shut it the fuck down. And that's it. And that's how you do it. Just one day, 24 little hours. Turn off the TV, the radio, the internet, everything. Just shut it down. And you'll see a change. But we have to do that. We have to unite. We have to say, okay, one 24-hour period. In Newark, Hakeem Green and the mayor, so on, there's a yearly thing called 24 Hours of Peace.
Let me see where Hakeem is. I'm listening. Go ahead.
So it's 24 hours of peace. And, you know, the goal is to have 24 hours. And just 24 hours of resistance. And you don't have to go out and get arrested or get beat by the cops or wear a sign or have a Black Lives Matter flag. All you got to do is stay home. Turn off your phone, turn off your internet, close your windows, close your doors, turn off the radio, just stay home, because they can't arrest you for violating or trespassing or breaking a curfew if you're in your own crib. Just shut it down for 24 hours. And that might seem like the simplest thing in the world, but the truth is, to get us organized to the point where we shut shit down for 24 hours takes a Herculean effort. And you don't have to burn nothing, destroy nothing, break nothing. Just stay home 24 hours. Just shut it down.
Well,
Turn it off.
we need to start burning our community. I mean, they burned a dollar. I've seen the image of they burned a dollar store. What can you, they looted and burned a dollar store. I mean, I spoke to Dr. Dre yesterday for an extensive amount of time. And we always get into, politics when we talk. They burned a dollar store. I mean, come on. We got to do better.
Well, one of the first things we have to do is what you're doing now, Kingsley.
Thank you.
And Brother Shafiq. You're using the airwaves to penetrate the minds and the hearts and the souls of our community and make them understand that there is an alternative. One of the reasons the jails are so full is because so many of these so-called offenders don't understand that there are alternatives. Look at Roxanne Shante. She had the most miserable childhood, but if she was alone, it would be, something. But she's one of millions of young girls that had to go through that. But she, at some point, God got in her spirit, her, and she said there are alternatives. And she collected all these strands and she wove something and made an alternative. And that alternative altered her life. I've been around this woman now for maybe 35, 40 years, and I've always seen her on the same path of trying to not only raise herself up, which is hard, but raising up the people around you, which is harder. And, I give honor to you, Kingsley, for having her on. And I give honor to her because she brings these different groups together that probably wouldn't listen to anybody else. And spiritually, she's made a big change in the environment around her. Like I said, I was in her home. She's making me breakfast and she's detailing each and every ingredient that went into that breakfast. And this, here I'm standing here, my mind is blown because they got this image of her so totally different. But a little thing like explaining, and she actually picked up the boxes and showed me the ingredients of all the poison and the crap they put into us. And that was 30 years ago. It was, I'll tell you exactly, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was 30 years ago. I think it was 89 or 90 because I did a video. I still have the video of her. And she also showed me a flyer, a rap flyer of a concert. And it said Roxanne Shante. Then it said Run DMC. Then it said LL Cool J. She got that on her wall in her crib. So, we have to not party just yet. The fire is not out. If you at a party and everybody's partying and you smell smoke, you got to get the women and children out. Go back, put out the fire. But the job is not done when you put out the fire. You have to rebuild a house.
That's it.
And they're playing three-card Monty, because let me tell you, the officer that shot Dante, because this officer is getting convicted, she's likely to not get convicted. So it's kind of like bracing you. It's kind of like, well, we know that they're already talking about the Chicago officer is probably going to get cleared. And then you have this other officer. So it's a whole system of how the things are coming about. So it really requires us to look at, here's our struggle in America. We can't live without the police. We've got to live with the police. What does that relationship really need to look like? And how do we get that to come together? And I got hired in 96. I'm retired now, but in 96, it was all about the war on drugs, all about young Black Hispanic men being drug dealers. And you had one job, and that was to lock up as many of them as you could to so-called get drugs off the street, to get guns off the street. Well, the country is literally legalizing most all drugs eventually, most all drugs in a couple of states, like even, heroin and a couple other drugs become like non-arrestable offenses. Even in the state of Connecticut, where people don't know, even in Connecticut, if somebody goes to the hospital and they have, let's just say, 20 bags of heroin in their pocket and 10 bags of crack in the other pocket, if they go to the hospital and the police at the hospital discover that, they can't be arrested. They cannot be arrested for it if you're like high or drunk or say we're in a car crash. They cannot be arrested for it. So in that case, it's already been in a way decriminalized. But we have an entire policing concept in America. No matter what, it is still about young black Hispanic men, men of color, and how to arrest them for the greater good of society. So we have to change that mentality within our law enforcement.
April had to leave, and I want to ask April one question.
Hi, well, I just want. Hi, April.
Hey, OJ. I saw your face and I smiled. It's good to see you.
OJ, April is walking out. April, I mean, for me, from Jack the Rapper in '93 in Atlanta, watching Tupac Wild Out, to New Music Seminar in New York, the last one at the Waldorf Astoria, and then going to Jack the Rapper in Orlando from there, where everybody was breaking out. Bad Boy, Death Row, everybody. It was an experience and a life changer for a lot of us to leave the streets for whatever it is that we were doing, into realizing that, you know, the music industry have a place for us, and it's a place where we can really make a living. And I recall coming back and you know, I got into my mixtape game, already being in the college radio, and started going real hard. So it was a game changer for me. For you, when was that game changer?
In the 80s. It was in 87 for me. You know, I was immersed in the culture, and it was music, and I just fell in love with hip hop and the music. My father was in the music business, so I already knew about that part of it. Like, but we didn't have anything that represented us in fashion in the stores, or for my tribe more than anything. Besides Dapper Dan. Dapper Dan was a big inspiration, you know, and I think me going to his shop definitely was like fire for me. I was in Brooklyn, so we didn't have anything that represented Brooklyn, which was very different than Harlem at that time, in hip hop. And I wanted to represent from my culture and my tribe here in Brooklyn. So that's how it all started. And it really came from self-expression, knowing I didn't want to work for someone else, knowing I loved hip hop, because hip hop was saying and doing, it was very anti-establishment. It was representing everything. We weren't being heard. Our voices weren't being heard. It felt like it was a culture of the unseen, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so hip hop was the CNN for us, you know, and that's what
network.
It was. Yeah, I wanted to represent that. So that's how it started. And it really just came from instincts and believing in it so hard, and having a passion and love and being creative, and not only knowing that I was creative at that time, because I went to school for business and communication. So that's how it all unfolded. And then Biggie lived in my neighborhood, and he came in the store one day when he was 15 years old, and we formed a relationship because we were neighbors. But he saw Eric B. and Rakim sweatshirt in the window, and that sparked a conversation. And we both had that common denominator for our love for hip hop. So many things happened then. I'd love to come back and talk to you another time. But
Great.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Yes, I do want to save your story for radio, because we're not even on radio right now. We are on Facebook, and I do not like to repeat questions. I'm like the DJ who does not want to repeat his record
Smart
for the night. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to watch the remix and get very familiar, so that we can have some pretty good stuff to talk about. Ernie, brother Ernie, always.
Thank you, everyone.
Always
Thank
nothing
you.
but love. OJ, well,
thanks, OJ. Good to see you. Thank you, Ernie, for the connection. Nice to meet you, King.
Baby, I've known you for so many years, and this is the first time you ever asked me for anything.
Wow.
And I said, wow. And before I could even digest that, I get a call from Kingsley. He's like, brother, I need you to be on the show with Roxanne and Shante. And
that is so divine right there.
It was like 2 minutes after she said, I want to meet Roxanne and work with her as a positive sister and, you know, advancement of women. And the thing hadn't even penetrated my brain, and Kingsley's coming in the other ear. And you know,
That's God.
April sent me a text that says, "That's God."
Yeah, yes.
And I just had chills all through my body because, you know, that's how we're supposed to work. We're supposed to, you know, just embrace all of this. So connecting April and
I love you,
Roxanne,
Ernie.
I don't even know what's going to happen behind that. You see, we are blessed to not know what's going to happen, but trust me, you can't get April and Roxanne together and something not happen.
Well, thank you very much. April got to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to
very
go.
much.
And let me,
Go
I
ahead.
hear your conversation on my closing. I would love to say to you and anyone listening, lateral cooperation creates vertical movement. So don't give up the movement, move forward. There is power in a chain, but it's as strong as its links. So we need each other.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Thanks for joining the Urban Talk Radio Show. We see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much. Later, all.
I love you.